Hi, everyone, this is the Encyclopedia Channel. The book that this program interprets for you is How Will You Measure Your Life? This book tells how to view and plan our life more reasonably, so as to achieve our own inner happiness. It is a book to help us solve our personal life planning problems. So, what is the greatest success in our life? How do you evaluate your own life? How to find a career that you really love and stick to it? How do you manage your family relationship while developing your career? After listening to this episode, I hope everyone can seriously think about how to manage their lives with heart. In this book, the author shares some of his life experiences, from his initial dream of becoming an editor of the Wall Street Journal, to the failure of his business, to returning to school, to discovering his passion for education, to facing the bad news of cancer, and to living a strong life, etc. He combined his own experience with the research results of business management and discussed life planning issues with us in easy-to-understand words. The author emphasizes in the book, "Find what you really love," which is the root of happiness, and hopes that all people can feel how important it is to think seriously about life. If you're expecting to hear the secrets to quick success in this book, you're probably going to be disappointed. Because the author believes that there are 1,000 definitions of success in the eyes of 1,000 people. The greatest success in our life does not come from the evaluation of others, but the satisfaction deep in our hearts. Figuring out what is the most important thing in your life is the key to how to evaluate your life. This is what this book really wants to tell us. The biggest feature of this book is that the author skillfully combines the research results of business management with the problems of life planning. The author believes that the theory in business management can not only help managers solve the crisis faced by the company, but also can be used for personal life planning. It can help us clarify the criteria for measuring success, rationally allocate resources, and embrace a happy life. On the cover of the book, we can see the names of the three authors, Clayton Christensen, James Allworth, and Karen Dillon. In fact, this book originated from a very influential speech given by the first author, Professor Christensen, at Harvard Business School that year. This speech was hailed as the most important class before graduation from Harvard Business School. James, who graduated from Harvard Business School, and Karen, who was the editor of Harvard Business Review, happened to listen to the speech and were touched by it, so they found Professor Christensen and wrote the book together with him. When writing this book, Christensen had just been diagnosed with lymphoma and was enduring the pain and suffering of chemotherapy all the time, but he still insisted on completing the creation of this book with a strong will. After explaining the basic situation of this book and the author, we will explain the content of the book in detail from three aspects: how to find the career you really love, how to persist in the career you love, and how to manage family relationships while developing your career. First part. How to find a career you really love. When I was young, many people were asked a question: what is your ideal? Some people say they want to be writers, scientists, athletes. But when we grow up, very few of us actually engage in the careers we dream from childhood. When we blurt out our dream careers, do we really understand the meaning behind them? Or maybe we just feel that these professions look powerful. Regarding this issue, the author emphasizes strategic planning to us in the book, and believes that enterprises have corporate strategic goals, and individuals should also have personal strategic goals. To find a career that you really love and can feel happy from, then there are three problems that need to be faced one by one. The first one is what really motivates you. The most readily available to us, and probably the most commonly used, are financial or material incentives. In the author's opinion, material incentives only work on some occasions, and it is impossible to conquer the whole world. For example, some highly educated talents did not choose high-paying jobs, but chose to work in non-profit organizations or charities. For another example, many graduates of prestigious schools choose to teach in difficult areas and places that some people think are most needed. Although they do not have high incomes, they have a strong sense of job satisfaction. None of these life choices can be explained by material motives. The authors suggest that material incentives may simply be a fundamental factor in why we do a job. In addition to basic factors, the real motivation should come from people's deep love and interest, that is, wanting to do something from the bottom of their hearts. This is the motivation that really deserves our attention. Today's people are facing a lot of pressure in life, to buy valuable property, to win the envious eyes of others, to be the pride of their parents, to realize their long-cherished dreams, and so on. Income is important, but if income is the first or even the only criterion for job hunting, then this job is at best just your means of earning a living, and it cannot become the career you pursue for life. A job that you really love should not just stop at earning money, but should also be in line with your values, challenging, gaining recognition, exercising a sense of responsibility, and helping personal growth. You will only find happiness at work if you find work that you truly love. The second is how to balance careful planning and chance. The author puts forward two concepts here: deliberate strategy and contingency strategy. The so-called careful strategy is a well-planned plan that you have made before doing something, and it can also be said to be an expected opportunity. The so-called emergency strategy is a temporary measure to face unexpected opportunities. It is very difficult to find a career that can give you motivation and satisfy the basic factors. Few people find a job that suits them best after graduation, and few people only engage in one kind of career all their lives. Our life planning is always in a state of interweaving and adjusting the careful strategy and the emergency strategy. When the emergency strategy proves to be effective, it will quickly rise to the careful strategy. In this part, the author uses his own job search career as an example to share some insights. The author's dream in his freshman year was to become the editor of the Wall Street Journal, which is his careful strategy. But after he failed to apply for the newspaper's summer job, he happened to get an internship opportunity in a consulting company. The company promised some enticing offers, so he decided to take the job for now as a quick fix. After his entrepreneurial failure, an accidental opportunity made him choose to return to school, and thus found his favorite career. In this process, we can see that the author is actually getting farther and farther away from his careful strategy, while the emergency strategy has repeatedly taken advantage and ultimately determines the direction of his life. Therefore, on the road of life, timely and flexible adjustment of strategies is actually a reasonable and necessary choice. In this way, you will not make too many mistakes, and you can avoid detours as much as possible. The third is whether the strategy you implement is consistent with your ultimate goal. In other words, is what you are trying to achieve really what you want? It sounds ridiculous. If it's not what I want, why should I put in the effort? But the truth is often so absurd. The author believes that resource allocation is the most critical in the process of strategy formulation. Why do many people fail to realize their dreams for life? Is it because the dreams are unrealistic or because they just want to get something for nothing? Basically, it's because they don't spend enough time, energy, and money on the things that matter most, or they spend their time, energy, and money on the wrong things. If a person devotes all his time and energy to his career, while his career is successful, his wife divorces him and his children are not close to him. This kind of resource allocation is obviously unreasonable. The author believes that whether it is a country, a company, or an individual, it is often impossible to avoid the behavior tendency of eager for quick success. We are always more willing to focus on things that can give us a sense of accomplishment quickly, but ignore those projects that are beneficial to long-term development. The author gives us an example here. Take the United States as an example. Although everyone knows that the existing welfare policies such as medical insurance and Social Security are full of problems, no member of the House of Representatives has proposed a solution. Because once someone proposes to reduce benefits, it is tantamount to offending all voters who can benefit from high welfare policies, because none of them are willing to bear the price of being kicked out of a proposal. Although many successful people know that family is the most important thing to them, it is a long process to accompany their lover and educate their children, so they spend more time on job promotion and earning wealth. At this time, the resources they invested are inconsistent with their strategic goals. If you don't want to be that kind of person, it's up to you to figure out what's most important and reallocate your resources now. Having said that, let us make a summary for everyone. In order to find a career you love, you must face and answer 3 questions. First, what are the driving factors? What are the basic factors? And for what purpose are you looking for a job? Second, handle the relationship between careful strategy and emergency strategy, and know when to adjust and balance. Third, examine whether the resources you invest are consistent with the goals you want to achieve, and ensure that you are always on the right path. The second part. Next, let us explain to you How to persevere in the career you love. Only a few minutes of enthusiasm is not good. Every kind of success in the world comes with preparation. For an enterprise, the goal is like a lighthouse. By setting clear goals, managers can encourage employees to think in one place and work in one place. The author believes that effective corporate goals include three components. One is the blueprint for the future, which is the way the company will be built in the minds of managers and employees. The second is the employee's sense of identity with the blueprint. Only when the company's goals and employees' work ideals are consistent, they will take the initiative to work and consciously safeguard the interests of the company. The third is the measurement scale. A successful company usually establishes a scale that allows employees to clearly evaluate their work. In this way, employees can refer to this ruler and always remind themselves to move forward along the corporate goals. What kind of goals an enterprise determines is not accidental, but after long-term thinking and planning. What the author says about business goals is equally applicable to life planning, and those who lead social reform movements have very clear and specific goals. Mahatma Gandhi pursued the goal of his life to achieve freedom, equality and independence in India through a non-violent, non-cooperative anti-British movement. On August 28, 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, Martin Luther King Jr. titled I Have a Dream, proposing to change racial discrimination and realize the goal of a free state in the United States. With goals, we are one step closer to who we want to be. But it is undeniable that in the process of achieving the goal, there will also be some unexpected opportunities and challenges. Should we stick to the goal we set at the beginning, or adjust the goal in time? On the one hand, this tests our patience and wisdom, and on the other hand, it also depends on the scientific nature of the goal itself. In the author's opinion, at every stage in the process of realizing the blueprint for the future, one must ask oneself such a question: who do I want to be? If one day you find that the self in the blueprint is not the person you want to be, you must stop, reconsider, and choose, otherwise you will go further and further down the wrong path. But once you determine what kind of person you want to be, you have to give 100% persistence. It may not be difficult to determine what kind of person you want to be. The real difficulty is whether you can make all the sacrifices and efforts to become such a person. Temptations are everywhere in life. In order to pass an examination, some candidates cheated in the examination room and were disqualified from the examination. Some athletes used illegal drugs in order to win gold medals and ruined their careers. The reason why some people are willing to take the risky step is nothing more than to make success easier. The price of making a mistake only once always seems to be very low. Here, the author introduces us the concept of marginal cost. In layman's terms, the cost of everything is very high at the beginning, but as the quantity increases and the process lengthens, the cost will become lower and lower. For example, the cost of producing the first Apple mobile phone is very high, but when the millionth unit is produced, the cost is very low. In the author's view, the trap of this thinking is that it makes people unable to see the real price to be paid for the only this once behavior. Many people think that it doesn't matter if they only accept bribes once, cheat once, or evade votes once, but the problem is that once they have the first time, there will be a second and third time. Once they start to indulge themselves in making mistakes, the value scale and moral code in their hearts will collapse, and one mistake is essentially equal to making many mistakes. Therefore, the author emphasizes in the book that the destruction of human beings is not created in an instant, but the cumulative result of multiple only this one time. In this book, the author tells us the story of a 26-year-old trader who accumulated debts of $1.3 billion, which eventually led to the collapse of the British Barings Commercial Bank. At the beginning, he only made a very small mistake, but in order to cover up this small mistake, he had to make more mistakes, such as forging documents, fabricating false reports, and so on. In the end, he was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. In an interview, he said his motivation was not accumulating wealth, but perpetuating success. If he could have foreseen such a result from the beginning, he would eventually lose the most important things in his life: freedom, marriage, career. Would he still make such a decision? The author reminds us at the end that persistence is the most important thing in life, and the joy brought about by making an exception without adverse consequences will tempt people to make the exception again and again, and finally step into the abyss. So the best way to resist temptation is to never take the most dangerous first step. If you can stick to the bottom line 99 times out of 100, it seems to be very principled, but the result is no different from those who have no principle, because 100 minus 1 is equal to 0, and the law will not choose to forgive a person because he only broke the law once. Although sticking to the principle will make us take less advantage, it will enrich our spiritual heritage, gain more people's admiration, and have a higher status. Isn't it worth it? A brief summary. The author believes that whether it is an enterprise or an individual, in order to truly persevere in the career you love, you need to focus on the really important things on the basis of establishing clear goals. But at the same time, he also believes that our attitude towards goals should not be too rigid and stubborn. In the face of unexpected opportunities and dangers, we must learn to adjust our initial goals in a timely manner. But once we have determined what we really want, we must persist without reservation, and we must not abandon long-term success and happiness for immediate benefits. The third part. How do you manage your family relationship while developing your career? The author tells us at the beginning of this part, work and career bring us a sense of instant accomplishment, while family brings us a sense of long-term happiness. If you want to become a rich businessman in the future, you must start investing now, because money will not automatically go into your pocket. If you want to have rich network resources in the future, you must start operating now. But many people don't realize that the relationship between us and our spouses and children also requires investment and management. The author believes that to maintain a long-term close relationship with family members, the first thing to do is to invest time. Here, the author tells us the theory of good money and bad money in business management, and it is also feasible to apply them in our life. If you only spend a small amount of money, you find that you are investing in the wrong direction, and you adjust the direction in time. What you invested in this case is good money. Conversely, if you've invested all your money in it, only to discover that your original strategy was fundamentally wrong, that's bad money. In daily life, many of us may often prevaricate our family members with the phrase, "I will make up for you twice when I am free." If we do not stop this wrong practice in time, we will never have the opportunity to invest in the emotions that are the real source of our happiness. The author believes that don't ignore the people you care about most in the world, and invest in the relationship before you need it. Second, you need to understand your lover's needs. The author believes that clarifying the lover's needs is the premise and basis for establishing a good relationship with the lover, rather than just starting from one's own needs. Our whole life is engaged in one of the most important jobs, that is to be other people's spouse. Many people may think that to be a good husband is to provide for the family, and to be a good wife is to take care of the family. The author believes that this understanding cannot be said to be completely wrong, but at least it is very superficial and one-sided. When a husband sees his wife's angry face, his first reaction is always to think that my wife is probably too tired and I should help her with some housework. But in fact, what the wife may want is just a hug. The author believes that many marriages based on selfless devotion fail because they only give the other party what they want, but never consider what the other party wants. Again, you have to develop your child's ability to succeed. The author believes in the book. Dell was once one of the most successful notebook manufacturers in the world, but later lost its core competitiveness due to frequent outsourcing. For an enterprise, the most important capabilities are 3 points. One is resources, the other is application process, and the third is behavioral value orientation. This model can also be applied in the process of raising children. The author believes that for children, resources refer to the knowledge and experience they acquire from elsewhere, and the application process refers to their way of thinking. They listen to teachers in class and observe how their parents, teachers, and classmates solve problems, so as to form their own ways of looking at things and dealing with problems. What is the difference between the two? For example, the knowledge a child receives in class is his resource, but if he uses this knowledge to invent a small object, this is the ability to apply the process. For another example, a child remembers the teaching of his parents to respect and care for the elderly and children, so when he sees the elderly fall down, he takes the initiative to help the elderly up. This is the process of transforming resources into application process capabilities. Value orientation refers to a child's tendency to choose, that is, his motivation for doing something. Everyone has considerations about what to do and what not to do, and this consideration involves personal value orientation. For example, if there are two children of the same age, one child thinks that getting good grades in an exam is the happiest thing, while the other child thinks that going out to sketch with friends is the happiest thing, then the two children will definitely be inconsistent in allocating their spare time. Going back to the experience of Dell, the author believes that many parents are busy with their work and eager to let their children gain a competitive advantage when they are young. They begin to outsource the task of cultivating their children. How to outsource it? They send their children to dance, music, piano, and other extracurricular remedial classes and summer camps. Although the burden on parents is reduced, the children may not like it and it is difficult to get involved, resulting in a waste of a lot of time and resources. These parents made the same mistake as Dell, focusing on the resources their children get, but ignoring the development of their ability to apply processes, which is very important to their future success. So what should parents do to help their children gain the ability to succeed? In other words, how should they cultivate children's three abilities of resources, application process, and value orientation? The author gives 3 suggestions here. First, every parent's words and deeds are a model for children to imitate. Parents should always pay attention to their own words and behaviors. In most families, parents' actions and choices will leave a deep imprint on the children's minds and gradually form their outlook on life, world outlook, and values. If parents teach their children to honor their parents while ignoring their own parents, such education is meaningless. Second, when a child encounters difficulties, parents should encourage him to solve the problem alone instead of solving it for him. Out of the consideration of caring for their children, parents provide them with various ready-made methods, and even replace their children to complete them. Over time, children's application process ability will fade or even be lost. Third, what parents need to do is not to force their children to learn certain knowledge, but to help them find what they really love. Anyone is more willing to focus on the things he is interested in. Parents should not take it for granted that children who love mathematics have a future, and children who love painting are not doing their jobs. What parents have to do is to help their children grow up happily, instead of stifling their nature with secular standards. Just now we talked about how to manage a good family relationship. You need to invest time, meet the emotional needs of your lover, and cultivate your children's ability to succeed. In fact, apart from this, we cannot do without a pair of invisible hands, family culture. Corporate culture is very important to the development of an enterprise. For example, if a company's culture is honesty, then no matter who is in charge of the management, the company is unlikely to have a culture of deception and deceit. Culture is not formed overnight, it is the way people work together towards a common goal. In other words, it is also the value orientation of a business. The authors argue that this theory also applies to family relationships. Parents cannot stay with their children forever to help them make choices, so cultivating children's abilities is the most important responsibility of parents. Helping children increase their knowledge is far less important than helping them form correct values. When they see someone stealing, will children think it is right or wrong? Should he stop it, turn a blind eye, or participate in it? These all involve the value scale in the child's mind. Where does this scale come from? It comes from family education. Corporate culture determines the value orientation of employees, and family culture also determines the value orientation of family members. Once a specific family culture is formed, children no longer need to ask their parents for advice before doing everything, because they know what their parents want them to do and how to do it is in line with the family culture. If your family culture defines success as having wealth, then your children may naturally give up on dreams that do not provide immediate financial gain. Because he knows that if he is stubborn, he will not be able to get the approval of his parents and the affirmation of the society. Culture is a process of penetration. Once formed, it is difficult to change, so parents should not underestimate it. Family culture will affect children's life. The above is the content of the last part of this book. Let us briefly summarize. The author believes that maintaining a long-term close relationship with family members is the source of our happiness. To keep this fountain flowing forever, first you need to invest time. Second, you need to understand your lover's needs. Third, you need to cultivate your children's 3 abilities of resources, application process, and value orientation. Finally, you need to strive to build a virtuous circle of family culture. Now, let's review the main points of this book. First, we talked about how to find a career you really love. You need to know what really motivates you. A good salary is only the basic factor for you to choose a job, but it cannot make you fall in love with it. Before applying for a job, you need to make careful plans, but when faced with chance opportunities, you need to know how to choose. You also want to make sure that your efforts are aligned with your goals. Secondly, we talked about how to stick to the career you really love. The most difficult thing in the world is to persevere. Once the goal is determined and the goal is scientific and reasonable, you must always stick to it, and you cannot allow yourself to make exceptions without principle. The danger of marginal just this once thinking is that taking the first step, no matter how small, is a surefire way to lose the most important thing in your life. Finally, regarding how to manage a good family relationship while developing a career, the author believes that more time and energy should be invested in educating children and deepening the relationship with the spouse. Say no to selfless giving and love your children and loved ones the way you want them to be. Avoid outsourcing-style tragedies, consciously cultivate the abilities that children need to succeed in the future, and don't hand over parental responsibilities to training institutions. Create a family culture and help children form a correct behavioral value orientation. Some people say that these are the author Christensen's 3 questions in life when facing death. As a cancer patient, his strength is moving. Although he didn't directly answer what is success, the words between the lines enlighten us. Don't be kidnapped by the worldly success standards, and find what you want to do from the bottom of your heart. This is an era when everyone desires to be successful, and we are all eager to prove that we are successful, but a person's greatest sense of accomplishment does not come from the evaluation of others, but from the inner desire. If you spend all your time with your kids and loved ones at work, you're missing out on the most burgeoning parts of your life. How Will You Measure Your Life spends a lot of space telling us not to ignore the most important people in your life, and you might as well invest time and energy to deepen the relationship with your lover and children. The reason why the author applies his analysis conclusions on the success or failure of enterprises to personal success and happiness is because, like enterprises, the success and happiness of each of us is not predestined, but comes from our own choices. Faced with all kinds of uncertainties in life, the only solution is to recognize where you are, and when you achieve any goal, you can clearly know what kind of person you want to be. This is the end of this episode of the show. What do you think about it differently? Welcome to leave a message to discuss with everyone. Hey, if you like our channel, please subscribe us. Haha, remember to like it.